Hello and welcome. We are in the final day of the web series on Global Entrepreneurship Survival Post-COVID-19, jointly organized by Department of Library, Thiruvallur College, Pavanasam, and ASDF International United Kingdom. Today, the speaker, Dr. Shannon Kalayanamitr, co-founder and CEO of Orami SME, having rich experience in international business, is from Thailand. It is a pleasure to be joined with you all today. COVID-19 is a watershed event in our lives. It has changed the world all the ways and also irreversibly. Disturbing times for all of us. I like to thank all of our frontline workers, medical personnel, people on essential duties, volunteers, scientists, jawans, government missionaries around the world with folded hands. Hope you will join with me to thank those people. COVID-19 has forced the people to incline more towards online shopping around the world. You see the images. Online shopping has experienced a slow and steady growth in the last 10 years. Online shopping increased about 1% per year to 16% of total retail sales in 2019. In 2020, COVID-19 is reshaping the purchase habits. UBS analysis predict that online shopping could rapidly increase to about 25%. So this is somewhat 7 to 10 years of growth compressed into a few months. But people are ordering only the very essential items. More low-value goods required to operate from home. You see the online purchase of around the world. For example, people concentrate on healthcare, medicine, nutritional supplements, and some packed foods. In addition to that, people buy groceries. And also we can see the restaurants move to delivery and takeaway mode. But we can see the decline in the sales of jewelry and apparel and other things. So around the world, e-commerce has been the lifeblood for cities under lockdown to fight against the coronavirus. So the e-commerce sector will continue to lead the growth for the overall economy of any country. You see the top players around the world. Chinese platform Tabo with a GMV of 515 billion US dollar ranks first. GMV, gross merchandise value or volume. So the online retail marketing is calculated, or the revenue is calculated using that GMV. Tmall ranked second with $432 billion, and Amazon ranked third with $344 billion. So e-commerce spending in the US is up more than 30%. So online business in India is also growing abruptly. So during COVID-19, digital economy has played the central role. In future also, it will continue to do so. Technology, data, business will be the mantra. Technology, data, business will be the mantra of the business and all walks of life. So technology is going to be a major theme. Data will play a major role in business. So the COVID-19 has accelerated the adoption of new technologies and new business model. We can't run away from that. And also in addition to that, technology liberates team coming together. You see this, we operated from Tamil Nadu down south of India, and ASDF team is operating from United Kingdom. So the speaker will be speaking from Thailand. You people are sitting in your home comfortably, but we run the program in a successful manner. So with these words, let me complete the address. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think it's like afternoon in India and evening in Thailand and morning in UK. So good morning to all, good afternoon and good evening to the concerned people. So we are almost like now in the final day of our program. And it has been like a very good journey for the past 3 days. And like I have been enjoying like each and every speaker's speech, and like it was quite interactive. And even after after the event, after the speech is over, the people are overwhelmed with the interest in listening to the speech again and again. So we could see like lots of emails and other things coming down into us, like asking for the videos. So we have been uploading all the videos, and now I thought of like moving into the program. So like I thought of giving a short introduction about Shannon Kalayanamitr. Shannon Kalayanamitr is presently the partner at Gobi Partners. She has almost like 18 years of entrepreneurial and international business experience. She has a rich experience on managing billion-dollar funds, and she has extensively traveled across the world. And recently, she has been invited as a speaker for the United Nations and on the United Nations Economic and Social Council. And to conclude my small introduction about Shannon Kalayanamitr, like yesterday, Dr. Audi Kalayanamitr was speaking about, his dad's little princess, and she's, she's the dad's little princess. Welcome to the dad's little princess, Shannon Kalayanamitr. Welcome. And, like the people, yesterday your dad gave a very big introduction about you. And, the people were excited, and the people were very much eager enough to listen to your speech today. And most of them are with lots of questions, it seems, today. So we'll see how it is going on. So welcome, Shannon. Like the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Krishna. My dad is a dad, so he has to say that. Anyway, okay. Thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I understand there's a lot of technocrats and scientists in here, so very privileged to be here. I'm gonna turn on my slides. Let me just see how I can do that. How can I actually do that, Dr. Krishna?
Yes, you can see an option called present now on the bottom of your screen.
I do not.
On the right side, on the right side bottom of your screen, turn on captions and turn on start presenting.
Okay, your entire screen. You will let share now. Here we go.
No, you can see the window. You can share the window.
Okay, share. Okay, and let me just quickly go to this and this.
That's great. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I know we have about 20 minutes, and I haven't timed myself, so let me know if I'm nearing the time and everything. So thank you very much today. So my name is Shannon. This is a little bit about me, but just as Dr. Krishna said, my current job right now, I'm currently a partner at Gobi Partners, which is a venture capital. We invest in tech. We have about $1 billion under management. We invest in everything tech sector agnostic. So we go everything from e-commerce all the way to AI to healthcare, whatever you name it. But we started about 18 years ago from Beijing and China. We have 13 offices today. And I'm currently taking care of the ASEAN ASEAN part of Gobi today. My background is investment banking at Lehman Brothers, and I also held some executive positions at Singha Beer, which is a global Thai company. It sells beer, but it sells everything else as well. And one of the biggest passions that I have is actually to incorporate social impact causes into my business or whatever I do, because I believe that you can actually make money at the same time, you could help save the world as well. So that's kind of been the background of myself. And you'll see that in a lot of what I'm talking about today. So we just went really briefly about just who Gobi is and what we do. Some of our big investors with us, we have Alibaba, we have the government, MavCap, and Khazanah, our Malaysian government. We work with Singapore as well. So we're we've been around for a while. And this is just a little bit, I'll skip over here. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about basically a few things. after COVID or during COVID. We're still in the middle of it. In fact, today we just found out, so Thailand actually didn't have any new cases from outside of Thailand for a while. And today, all of a sudden, we just found out that 2 diplomats have been let into Thailand without the requiring a quarantining process. So they got tested. Usually anybody who comes into Thailand, even though you're repatriated, you actually have to go into a state quarantine. And then we found 2 privileged people who didn't go through the quarantine process. So the reason why I bring that up is inequalities. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up is during COVID here, we have the opportunity, as we all know, to kind of reset what we're doing. There's been a lot of people talking about why COVID happened and, you know, companies being able to survive and not survive, how to make sure that we survive future pandemics, or how to make sure that maybe we use this opportunity to set things right. So at Gobi, what we are actually doing, and hopefully with this forum, and this is actually what I talked about at the UN last Friday, what we're doing is doubling down on 4 key aspects for us, using COVID as an opportunity to reset what we do. One of them is we already invest in Southeast Asia, and we are in emerging markets. So we have, I think the closest to I understand a lot of the attendees are from India. We do have a Pakistan office, and we also have a Saudi Arabia office, but not in India yet. So if you know anybody who wants anything down there, please let me know. We're looking for partners. But yeah, so we are doubling down on Southeast Asia and emerging markets. We believe that there's a bunch of fundamental problems that still need solving. Number 2, we also are doubling down on women founders. Inclusion is a large passion of mine, but what we've also seen as we're working at Gobi is 30% of our current portfolio are actually women founders. We've invested into women. We've seen that they make very good business decisions, and we're very happy with the financial performance. So women, not only is it a SDG or a goal to actually help with the gender divide, but also investing in women founders and diversified teams actually make good financial sense. The other problem that we're solving with women founders is, you know, only 3% of total venture capital money globally goes to women. So 97% actually goes to men. So we're trying to raise that divide and increase that number as well. And fundamentally, half of the world's population is women. There's been a study done by, I think, Sweden. If we actually empowered all of our women in the world that are actually working, that are able to work, we would actually contribute another $3 trillion. I think it was $3 trillion or $6 trillion to the actual global GDP. So just imagine if we unlock that untapped resources, which include women, that's something that we could do. Number 3, the other thing that we have decided to incorporate or double down even more is using ESG as our lens for investment. So I'll get into ESG in a bit, but ESG basically is environmental, social, and governance. And it's very similar. A lot of people mix it up between ESG and SDGs. I have another slide after this, but basically SDGs are the Sustainable Development Goals developed by United Nations, and I'll show you in a second. And number 4, since I'm in a room full of technocrats, the use of technology. We've seen that a bunch of we only invest in technology. We are very happy to see that most of our startups and most of our companies that we have invested in are actually doing well and also surviving during this time. I mean, we have seen the bloodbath of the offline companies that are going on right now. Very fortunate that we have selected in technology, because we believe not just technology is a great digital disruptor of the entire world, but also the fact that we use technology, it democratizes access to everybody. So everybody actually has access to more education, more finance, more information via tech in rural areas. And I think this goes the same with Thailand, with India, with all the emerging countries around. So these are the 4 things that we're actually doing. And we're seeing a trend to for all of these 4 goals as well. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up, this was at the UN talk last Friday, was that for Southeast Asia, so for the SDGs, for United Nations, there's like a bunch of goals, 17 goals that we actually have to hit before 2030. And there's been a report done. One of the goals is number 10. Southeast Asia is in the biggest risk to not attain this goal. This goes back to the inequalities, which is also the example that I told you about. Did you know that in Thailand, the 1% of Thailand actually control 88% of the entire economy? So not only is it like the economic mobility, economic and social divide, it just gives very little chance for the people who are at the lower economical, social, economic statuses to actually rise up in the world and actually make more money. I mean, fintech inclusion is a big problem here in Thailand. It's also the same in South Asia as well. Healthcare is a big gap. And we have environmental gaps in gender and all this other stuff. So you'll see that the theme that I'm always talking about is inclusion. And the reason why I'm bringing up in this forum today is that perhaps some of you are figuring out what to do next, and maybe figuring out what else you can dive into as we're coming out of COVID, or let's say next year. It is a hibernation period. And so a lot of these problems that we're seeing right now could use your genius brains to actually help tackle this, via tech. If you're interested, this is an SDG report that just came out. It's a progress report. It actually talks about our different regions for Asia. I'll show you some targets. So for example, this is for all of this is for all of Asia, which includes, you'll see up here, so East Asia, North Asia, Pacific, Southeast Asia, South and Southwest Asia. So in Southeast Asia, you'll see the biggest one is reduce inequalities, and it covers everything, the ones that I just talked about. In South and Southwest Asia, in this report, it actually talks about Nepal, Bangladesh, and India on a highlight, but it basically says the biggest problem of not being able to reach the goal that they have set out for 2030 is actually responsible consumption and production. And I'll get into this one in a bit, but this is just so in case you're looking for what problems are actually the biggest problems in your regions to date. And perhaps you might have some inspiration and motivation to tackle these specific problems. For me, like I said, I'm tackling this one because this is my region, but there's so many others that you can look for. So you could go to the report and find out more. Just some more key examples of reverse trends. So we're actually not progressing, but we're going to reverse everything from greenhouse emissions, manufacturing, railway, harmful use of alcohol, all the way to gender wage gap, refugee problem, et cetera. And then we have gender parity in in youth labor force, actually. We have a big financial inclusion gap. This is both, all over emerging market Asia. So we have the need versus the formal supply gap. So a lot of people think that we don't have, financial inclusion is about 4 different things, right? Payments and transfers. Are people banked? Do they have a savings account? Okay, that's just like basically the fundamentals. That might be a little bit easier to solve, but as we get to like credit, so the microfinancing, is there enough credit that's actually going to the SMEs? Or in Thailand, and I don't know too much about India and South and Southwest Asia, but in Thailand, if you are a business owner, if I'm like tomorrow, if I wanted to go get a loan to do a business and I don't have any land, I don't have any access. So it's very hard for me to move up my economical and social ladder because there's not enough access out there. And personal loans are basically loan sharks that are just ripping me off, basically. So, and I do know that that's a problem fundamentally for all emerging markets. But yeah, so we know financial inclusion is definitely a gap. Insurance as well, and even private wealth management. Like even if it's like, for me, there's a rising middle class here in Southeast Asia, and the same in all parts of Asia. So the financial literacy for me actually to know what to do with my savings, to actually try to save for my educational fund for my kids or whatever, that type of information is still not available. And all of these things are solvable by tech. Some more stats on Southeast Asia. So, and actually I'll jump to South and Southwest, but basically you'll see this is what we just talked about: responsible consumption and production. This is in regression. Peace and justice in strong institutions. You know, how do we solve these problems with tech? So the G in ESG is governance. So we actually have you know, frameworks, AI. You know, you could use different types of KPIs and systems to actually incorporate, to actually develop and address this one goal. But outside of all that, there's so many. Even though there's progress, we don't know if we're going to hit the 2030 right here. So that means there's still room for tech ideas that actually solve all these problems here, whether it be gender equality, and gender equality could be even like, let's see, where economic, so reduced inequality. So one example of reduced inequalities is job HR platforms that basically enable people who are disabled, people in the rural, to actually do work from home jobs and whatnot, people who actually don't live in the city, who actually have the capabilities. Or even like what's going on, I just met with a startup earlier today. They do EdTech. So EdTech is on the rise because they have a lot of people out of work that are unskilled laborers. So what they do is they go online, they're learning about labor. I think my dad talked about this yesterday, about the reskilling or upskilling of laborers. So just to go online and just to have these educational resources, then to actually to go online to find jobs, to work from home remotely. I mean, I should talk because there's a bunch of remote businesses coming from India, but I mean, as you know, there are so many different types of ways to solve these problems. So again, this is an interesting report to look at, to see, you know, what problems you might be able to solve, you know, with all the resources in your hands. This is a bigger breakdown. If you want to see this, then just go to this one report, and I can share with you later. So these are some of the issues with the SDGs that we see everywhere. And if we categorize them, so SDGs, like I said, is 17 goals by the UN, and they basically talk about like different needs. So poverty, hunger, all the way to education, sanitation, all the way to economic growth. So my passion is actually more economic growth and inequalities, because I can't save everything. I do have to pick my battles. There's climate action, which is a big priority for this year and last year as well. I was at the World Economic Forum earlier this year, and it was only climate change. I mean, Greta was there and Trump was there. That was a bit of exciting to see. But yeah, there's life before water. There's all these different goals that you could actually look for and address. So the difference, I'll skip on this one. Okay. So as an investor, I always get the problem, the issue that people are like, oh, are you doing social impact investing? Does it actually make money? And people associate investing in social impact businesses as low returns. On the contrary, what we're actually seeing is that, so this actually shows a little bit more on the different types of SDG concerns. But one of the things that we're actually seeing is that with SDGs are the goals. So it's more a directional thing. ESG, environmental social governance, this is actually a risk management tool. So one is like the goals. One of them is the mechanism. It's a tool to actually help you address all of them. So for example, when you implement ESG in your companies, basically what it is it's like a checklist. And you basically, and then with the checklist, you have an assessment tools and all these different ways of how you actually do it. And for us, not for us, globally, what ESG is supposed to do is, the theory is, if you actually implement ESG in your fundamental strategy, then you are protected long-term from potential value destroyers. For example, and then thus your company will become financially sound and become sustainable in the long term, able to withstand, pandemics or crises or whatever. For example, environmental. If you already have these checks and balances of, oh, okay, you don't emit toxic waste, blah, 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 blah. What the risk of it is if you do not address it, and then you are a gasoline company, and then your ship actually has an oil spill in the middle of the ocean, your stock price will go down. Or not just what's really bad for the environment, we all know what goes wrong, but it actually presents a big fundamental issue economically for your company, right? If you don't go through these checks and balances. Another one would be social. So for example, if you don't have the proper gender diversity policies, not only is it really good to actually have a diversified team, we've had statistics and performance internally that actually show that these companies make a financially sound company. But the ESG part of it says is, if you don't have these frameworks in place that actually protect employees about gender diversity, LGBTQ, or whatever it is, you could potentially have a Me Too situation in your company, which, as you know, companies go down because they have Me Too issues or whatever. Labor standards. If you are employing a sweatshop and then people find out about it, your stock price goes down. Or, obviously we again know that it's really bad for the company and really bad for people and human rights, etc. But the financial side of things is affected when you don't have some of these standards. Same thing with governance. If your board and the ways that the transparency of how fiscal policy or fiscal duties are done within a company, if that's not aligned in the beginning and set from the beginning, then your company could be susceptible to fraud or embezzlement or whatever it may be. So think of it as SDGs as being goals, and then ESG as a risk management tools and a framework to help you hedge. So this is all going down the line of what is now not just a new trend, but it has actually been seen that it helps companies sustain long-term. This is a bit more. So like I said, a lot of people think, and this data is actually outdated, this is actually in 2018, what actually happening now is we've seen that any company that employs an ESG framework actually has better performance, and is not just better performance, it's healthy performances. The multiples are much better. The morale is better. It just basically is a much healthier company internally as well as financially. Just a bit more information on how SDGs, so this is SDGs, this is ESG. So which part of E? So for example, the one that South and Southwest Asia has the biggest problem is responsible consumption and production. Yes, no doubt, it is a bunch of environmental issues. It has a little bit of social issues as well, because it has the inclusion issues, and then the governance of how it's actually being monitored or tracked for the consumption and production. So that's why it's all equally weighted in this one. So it's just a way of how they both work together. This is another one, basically repeating the same thing, but it basically just says, see, there's production and stuff like that, but this is just from another source. So just some things, this is just to say that here at Gobi, we actually do implement a lot of these strategies. We actually have a company, it's a fashion company, and they do upcycling. So they actually look at materials, producing fashion from materials that were already made into something, and then basically all the leftovers were used again to make fashion products. Okay, so that was the big bit about ESG and SDGs. Now comes the third or the fourth part that we're actually focusing on, which is tech. And since we're in a room full of tech people here, as you know, and like the initial presenter in the beginning talked a lot about how tech benefited during COVID. So for us, it's this, what we've seen this globally. So all the ones that really were affected, as you saw, all the travel, all the planes, all the tourism, all of these industries were all affected really, really hard. And all these are the potential winners. Hello? Hi.
Sorry, it was a cross talk. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Okay. How much more time do I have, by the way?
So you can go with your presentation. Like we are very much excited about your presentation, and it's very good. So we don't bother about the time. The people are very much interested for the meeting. Please go ahead.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Well, this is actually more towards the end because this is the last point already. So the last point is some of the industries that we know that actually were. So it's not just potential winners. We're seeing it in our portfolio. So Gobi has about 260 investments, like I said, across all of Asia, all the way to China, Southeast Asia, and all the way to Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. We made our first investment in Africa as well. And you'll see that the main thing is it's all emerging markets. So for us, we've seen all of these industries that we actually cover. And what we've actually done is we've looked at it, and all of these, which include here that are tech, are actually almost all winners. So I'll go into the next slide. So what we've done internally at Gobi is that we've basically separated our industries up here from, so obviously we're not offline, right? We're only online. So from this sectors, what we've actually done is we've separated again to essential and non-essential. So for example, we know medical supply, we have medical B2B e-commerces, that's essential, done really well. Food processing and retail, that's essential, done really well. We have a bunch of apps that are just grocery apps, food apps, et cetera, including some apps that help with labs and FDA and all these certifications. Personal and healthcare doing very well as well. Frankly, we have an offline and online, and I'm talking about not just our internal portfolio, but also some other portfolios and what I've seen in the market. So beauty and fashion is a non-essential. So as you see, nobody's wearing makeup anymore, or, it's like stuck in our mask. So nobody wears makeup, and nobody's really buying fashion because we're not going out. So those were the ones that actually were the non-essential tech ones that actually suffered. And then there's the ones that are essential e-commerce that did really well. So more e-commerce over here, agriculture, the ones that, so we invested in a few drone companies that take care of agriculture, because now the farmers don't want to go out and actually have to physically do manual labor. So what happens is these drones are actually doing the fertilizers, across the world, and we've seen an uptick here. Oil and gas, I will skip because we actually don't have an exposure there. Education, like I mentioned earlier, doing amazingly well. There's education in so many ways. There's education for students. There's education for online learning, like in universities and whatnot. There's education for vocational and technical and unskilled laborers, or skilled laborers who actually want to learn another type of education. So education, as we all know, is doing amazingly well. Financial services. So we have a few exposures here. Financial, we have a few companies in Indonesia, Malaysia, that actually do, so payday loans, consumer loans, SME loans, and it's doing amazingly well because people are just not going to the banks. Not only that is we're actually accessing people who are in the rural areas that actually need it. And so those are sectors that are doing really well. The other one that we're doing well is we invested in a company in Thailand, basically allowing middle-class people to get educated about mutual funds. So in this pandemic, what's happening is people don't want to invest in the stock market. I mean, in Thailand, I think in March, we had a circuit breaker where the stock market fell so low that we had to stop, the SAT actually had to stop and reset, you know, not reset, but basically had to stop, pause the stock market so then people can invest and it doesn't go down to the floor. So what happens is people don't really want to invest into equities at this time. So what do? They want to invest in fixed income because it's safer. And so it's not really common knowledge for normal people to understand that, oh, okay, let's invest into mutual funds. So one of the things that are doing really well is this Robo Advisory company that we have. And it basically says, okay, if you want 5 million, I'm going to say baht, but let's say 5 million USD by X amount of, you know, years, then you need to save this much. And then they basically put it into a basket for you. Okay, a little bit of fixed income, a little bit of equities, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and basically helps you manage your savings so you actually hit your financial goal by X amount of years. Manufacturing is doing amazing because of the IoT conversion. There is, we do have, well, the other cap is my father has a lot of, has another business in 5G. And so we're seeing a lot of people actually using this time to actually explore 5G and other types of IoT devices to make sure that they are set for when, you know, the capacity goes back up again for manufacturing. So during this time, people are like, okay, you know, what devices do I use? What data do I need to collect? What is it that I'm doing? And so manufacturing is doing not amazingly well, but it's still okay well. Now we're going to the harder stuff, so construction and real estate. We have a company that does, it's kind of like Airbnb, so short-term stays. But what we did was, and it's also dependent upon travel as well. What we did, what the company did was very smart. They basically pivoted from short-term stays to long-term stays to make sure that the recurring revenues actually keep coming in. So these are now, you know, the red are still now starting to get to the hardest hit one. We have some in tourism and travel as well. So all of these, actually we have one in automotive, and it's secondhand cars. So that one is actually doing really well. The only problem is we're not allowed to hand over the cars. And so we have to wait until the lockdown is over, and then now trade is going back to normal. But in terms of the demand has went up. In terms of actually cash hitting the bank, we had to wait until the lockdown's over. So these are just some winners and losers during this pandemic here. This is an interesting chart, and this just is similar to what you were talking about earlier in the first presentation. But you'll notice that some of the fastest growing categories are the essential products. So you'll see, okay, well, not just essential, but anything from home, right? So TV, workout, hair coloring, because you can't go to the salon anymore, office equipment. People are investing into health and beauty now. And then declining. So declining is just, so Noah's going camping, golf clubs. So these are all non-essential. So as you see, this trend is global. These are just some of the startups that we have, and I think I've mentioned most of it. This is actually really cool. So Eureka is a company that basically is in Indonesia, working with telcos, using their systems to actually help the government, Indonesian government, pinpoint COVID affected patients. And what it also does is that if they see that patient or affected victim around other people, they will alert those people. They'll also track like if there's like a large gathering of people as well. So so yeah, I mean, just different ways how tech is used in. So you'll see something here, which is the underlying key is tech, but the goals that we're solving are actually addressing some of the SDG goals as well. So some of them are not, so like the fashion one are not, except for it does address the environmental ESG goals. So Sorabal is the one that we were talking about. CARSOM is actually empowering some of the middle class with their secondhand car and reducing costs for them. So there's, and then all of these are fintech, financial inclusion companies. So just before the last couple slides, and perhaps maybe some of the key takeaways that we've done. So with our companies, during the pandemic, we basically got to them earlier and we basically said, hey, look, this is us, and it's a vice versa. It's very interactive. Sometimes the startups are coming to us and like, hey, what do we do? And then for us, it's also like, hey, there's a pandemic. Let's talk about this. So what we did across the board was we reached out to them and we said, can you please do a business continuation plan? What that is a projection of the scenario if the pandemic lasts 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And then if it does last during that, the impact to your business. And if you need more cash or more runway for your company to survive, what do you do? So in that way, people are starting to plan what they have to do to survive throughout this pandemic. And a lot of it had to do with laying off, cutting staff, unfortunately. But a lot of them, because we understand that people need jobs to survive during this time. There are other creative ways that they actually tried to work around it too. So there were like, instead of cutting the salary or the headcount entirely, one company actually did it where they would work every other day. And so then they get half of the salary of what they were going to get, And then there were ways that we did hibernation. So X amount of staff actually only got like marketing or whatever function that wasn't so active during this time. But then we actually had it where like the tech team actually did a lot more tech development during that time. So they basically took turns in the focus of where they spread the money and resources. Some of the companies actually had to refocus and say, you know what, this business unit that we had, it really isn't going to do anything for the next, 6, 12, 18 months. Let's divest, put some cash flow in, and it's just a hard decision you have to make, but that's what you have to do to survive. A lot on the upside, there were some that actually did really well, that are doing really well during the pandemic. So they doubled down on marketing, they doubled down on tech development. They actually acquired because, let's face it, I'm in venture capital, so and everybody's in the business to make money as well. Not in a take advantage kind of way, but there were a lot of acquisitions that were made during this time because a lot of companies just won't survive. So there was a lot of acquisitions for business expansion and development, and that's just been, it is what it is in this world right now. A lot of startups that we worked with, including the ones outside, are doing some creative fundraising. It is harder to fundraise during this time, but there were creative ways in terms of crowdsourcing. There were down rounds. There were some successful rounds that had to close at maybe a lower valuation, or some companies that did really good, and then they actually were able to multiply their valuation a bit up because they were done so well. So, I guess what we're saying here is COVID is definitely, it leveled the playing ground. Like everybody just had to deal with it. And it really depends on how you deal with it and what kind of hard decisions you had to do and had to take. And some of them actually had to do some really hard decisions, and some of them actually had to do some aggressive growing in nature decision. But one of the things that we've seen fundamentally for everyone is that they're using this time, this downtime, to actually assess internally and put some risk management tools inside. And we're actually trying to help them with matters, introducing the ESG management tool, the frameworks as well, doing some KPIs, doing some internal governance restructuring. And also some of them have a renewed vision to basically incorporate social into their strategy going forward. So my last slide here is during this time, during COVID, everybody has the opportunity to think about, okay, what next? What are you going to do with the current time that you have now? You have the resources, you have the knowledge of tech. How are we going to change it going forward? And outside from just strategy and trying to see if maybe you would consider doing something that's social or impact or ESG centric, not just to save the world, but also it makes good financial business as well. But the key question is how. So one of the things that we've seen a lot more now, especially during COVID, is partnerships. So we work with people from different countries, we work people with different industries, different focuses, because everybody doesn't have that. The first budgets that are slashed is actually marketing budget and staffing budgets, right? So we have to work with what we have. If this person is good in marketing, but then we're good in tech, then how do we come to a partnership together to collectively, have the same goal? Same thing with the governments as well. There's a bunch of grants out there. There's a bunch of new private-public participation schemes. I'm not saying that they're easy yet, but there are some out there. But for us, we're private sector. We try to work within the private sector because it's quicker, easier, and everybody's kind of in the same struggling boat. So So for us, if you guys have anything out there that we can help out with, we've seen partnerships work cross-country and cross-functionally, and also all the way down to all the way up to governments. And we've seen jobs created. We've seen a lot of impact created. We've seen a lot of money being made as well, and all through tech. So I'm coming to the end of my presentation here. I think the main summary is, let's see if we all can incorporate SDGs and ESG into whatever we're doing next. Since I believe, and we all believe, that COVID is a nice reset button to be able to do things. And if there's anything that we can do to help, let's connect our networks between Southeast Asia and South and Southwest Asia. And we're here. That's it.
That's great. Thank you, Shannon. It was a very amazing presentation. Yesterday, your dad was giving a small introduction, and it has induced most of the people to be as a participant today. And now, after seeing your presentation, okay, yes. Okay, yes, it has been a really and very good, amazing experience for our people. Starting from the base of the COVID to the end point of the COVID. So it was a very fantastic presentation, Shannon. And, before moving on to the questions, I thought of adding a small point, a couple of points to be specific. So what are the points? First thing is my appreciation, my special appreciation and thanks to you because we had a gender gap in the presenters, in the speakers of this web series, and you have fulfilled the the gender gap of this web series. That was the first thing. The second thing is I thought of adding in a small point to your presentation also. Across the countries, in the world, India has the highest rate of interest in the banking segment. As you were mentioning about the fixed deposits, the guaranteed returns, India has almost 8%, which is being guaranteed by the banks. For example, the investment for 1 year and 1 month, they give 8%. Whereas I have my accounts in Thailand also. So I just get literally 0.2% or 0.1%. Whereas in the UK, I don't even get that too. So that's how the banking segment works out here. I thought of just adding this point also to your presentation. So now shall we take the user's question, Shannon?
Sorry, what was the last part?
Shall we take the user's questions now? The participant question.
Anytime.
That's fantastic. Okay, thank you, Shannon. The users, those who like to ask for the questions, can unmute themselves and start asking the questions.
Thank you, Shannon. I am Rajasekhar. Which countries will emerge as major players in logistics sector? So for online marketing, logistics sector is very, very important.
Yep.
Do you feel the Southeast Asian countries will emerge as top players in logistics sector? Please answer.
Do I think Southeast Asia will emerge as the largest logistics? I don't know about the largest, but we definitely, I mean, we have a lot of companies in logistics today. They're doing extremely well. So I remember when I was starting at Lazada in 2011, frankly, the infrastructure and the logistics here was just terrible. The team had to go to the postal office to teach them about cash on delivery. And I think it's the same thing in India as well. Basically, there's a lot of gaps in the market, and the whole entire last mile, it just was unheard of at that time. So whether connecting, and I'm just talking about e-commerce for now. So, and then just connecting from the warehouse inventory, inventory, warehouse, and then fulfilling it, whether it be from Bangkok by bike, by mail, by postal, or any large shipments, like that whole entire, and then the whole entire coming back to customer service, like that whole thing took 10 years for us to all kind of get it to where we're at right now. So there's a lot of activity out here. I haven't seen much activity where it connects to port or connects to train yet. I think there's an opportunity there, because then there's the deep sea ports that actually make Southeast Asia into a bigger player into logistics. But so far, I mean, where we see challenges and gaps, there's a lot of opportunity, and I think that's the same thing around Southeast Asia.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Ma'am, what will be the future of physical stores? What is your suggestion for survival?
Interesting. Well, this is my personal opinion, though. So I think no matter what, you'll still have physical stores, and it depends on what kind of sector it is. If it's groceries, I think people still like to see like fresh products. But if it's like cans, I think there's not going to be much. Like, you know, in Korea, they actually have it where it's QR codes now, or you're on the train, and then you actually order it, and then by the time you get home, it gets delivered there. So they only have like anything heavy. Basically, you just order online, and it just goes to your door. Whereas on the other hand, if it's fashion, I think that one, I think that's tricky. There's definitely we don't need room for all 30, 40,000 like branches anymore. We've seen some trends of some fashion houses that basically it's basically a showroom. So the branches don't become a retail space. It's just a showroom. And then you order, or you try, and then basically you don't take it home with you. So I think there's gonna be, so this is what we call omnichannel. And it doesn't mean that, I think it's good for businesses if they could actually scale this correctly. But basically what that omnichannel means is where you have online marketing that drives people to the shop, and then, or the shop experience drives people to the online. And so basically it's still one company with different types of angles of how you do things, but you're saving costs because you don't need to like build out all that infrastructure and decoration for each shop anymore. So I think we're still gonna have it, but it's gonna be slashed by more than half. And we're seeing that with the Walmarts and Victoria's Secret and everything across the world, right? So I think, yeah, in terms of restaurants, I mean, that's a totally different animal though. Restaurants, I think you still need to eat outside. It's more lifestyle than anything.
That's fantastic, Shannon. Like, you know, before concluding, we have two questions. The questions from two users. Dr. Kiran Kumar, are you online? Like, if you can, unmute yourself and ask a question, or do you want me to ask a question? A note for Dr. Kiran Kumar. You want to ask a question?
Once. Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Kiran Kumar.
Yeah, thank you. What factors do you consider before funding any startup ideas? Since you are from venture capitalistic domain, can you give any factors for this?
Sure. Usually, it's every venture capital is pretty much the same, and it depends which stage you're at. So if you're very early stage, frankly, we don't fund anybody that is just in idea mode. We need to fund people or companies that actually have been in existence for at least a year. Because when you fund something, it's not just the idea is great. It's got to be the execution, the team that you put together. Do they not fight with each other? Are they going to last, right? Do you actually prove your product to the market fit yet? Does this thing or service or product that you're selling, does it actually make money, some money, or some kind of what we call is proof of concept? So for example, you might not make revenues yet, but there's a lot of people who signed up for your service. That's also very good as well. So there's different factors that we actually look into before we, like some key fundamental criteria first, before we actually look into seeing if we want to fund, them. And then it also has to have a large problem that you're trying to solve. So we call that in startup, the total addressable market size, right? So make sure that it's not too small. Like for example, when I had my startup and we did e-commerce for women, people actually thought that women was too much of a niche. But the thing is, for women, when you target women, you actually get not just 50% of the population, but women actually buy for like health, groceries, whatever, for their husband, for their kids, for them. So they actually control 75% of the purchasing power. So when it comes to that, then there's a large addressable market size. I've seen a startup that basically is doing an automatic air drum on their body. And it's like, I have no idea why people want to fund that type of thing. Or something like, you go to this wall and then you love that color and then you make it into a nail polish color. Like, it's too niche, right? So I think those are kind of fundamental things first. And then you actually look at the entrepreneur. The biggest thing for us, how we fund people or companies, is the entrepreneur itself. Do they have what it takes to actually weather any storm? For example, this pandemic, are they able to navigate it? Are they going to make the right choices? Are they smart enough? Because even if you have a fantastic service, and then let's say a big giant dumps $10 million or $100 million into the same idea, how do you pivot quickly enough so then you can stand out from that giant? So when you look at assessing a company, it really is all about, one, does the market make sense? Does the product make sense? Is it going to make a lot of money or scalable? And is the driver in the seat, is the team the right team?
Thank you.
So like adding to your point, Shannon, like, we people have got adapted for the new normalcy, we call it as. And now, we started, cooking in the home, we started doing our own dishes, everything has started on our own. So like, I think like in the future, it would be very difficult for people like us to go to the restaurants also. Because like, now in this pandemic period, in this lockdown sequences, we have learned a lot of things. And, like we have become as a master chef. So like, we don't think, we don't consider the restaurants as one of the, the very good tasty food also. Like, how do you see this point? And, like, what is your view on this, Shannon?
Maybe you're a better cook than I am. I think that might be the case. Yeah, I think restaurants serve a few functions, right? They are convenient. They have food for you to eat. That's good. Mm-hmm. And basically it's a lifestyle thing. So I think that it won't be, I mean, yeah, I think all the fast food chains, I think they will start to become less and less and less, because it's not really like a lifestyle. You don't take your date there. You don't take your, well, you could take your kids there. So maybe that's the alternative. But yeah, I don't see the end of that so much.
Because like, you know, for example, in the UK, the United Kingdom recently, like, you know, we had a lockdown for almost like 2 months. And, you know, once when the McDonald's and the KFC opened up here, like, you know, for the first 2-3 days, the queue was long and largest. And, you know, after that, like, you know, it's quite empty. And I don't think like the people are interested to come down there. Like I was seeing like only the Uber Eats and, you know, the Deliveroo and these type of people are there. And that also not into the same quantum of what we had earlier before the lockdowns. So anyway, so, you know, we'll take a last question from the user. Anyone would like to have a last question? Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Let's see.
Hello.
Yes.
This is Dr. Kiran. I would like to continue with my previous question. From the presenter, I have seen that they have not entered into the Indian market. So what is their ideas about post-COVID-19 funding scenario? What are their ventures planned for the future? What kind of areas they would like to focus? Just I would like to get a brief outline about their ideas, because that itself gives us an idea what a venture capitalist is thinking about new startups.
Sure.
Is my question clear?
Yeah. It is quite clear. But I think my whole presentation was basically on that. But okay, I think maybe the backstory a little bit. So my company has 8 partners. We have 13 funds. And with the funds, we have different focuses. So you'll see that the main thing that we're sure that we're going to dive down to is we continue with emerging markets. Lots of problems to solve. And with that is not just the social side, but like I said, it's also financially favorable for us as well, because you know, that means there's a bigger problem to solve and much more to gain. So I think that's one. Second thing is we are, I think the whole world is now, but everybody is very focused on healthcare. So for us personally, I'm focused more on healthcare, more on anything inclusion. So then a lot more fintech. We have a lot more we have a lot of AI automation. We have a lot of edutech, actually. Anything mobility, anything that basically helps economic mobility. So that's more my personal passion, including gender parity, gender inclusion, and racial and disability as well. So that's more my passion. My other partner right now is starting a fund, or has started a fund already, and has recently just started deploying more deep tech issues, deep tech startups. So everything from automation, AI, all the way to drones, biotech, biomedicine, yeah, a lot down that angle. So I think you'll see a trend for most ventures going down this way as well.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much for your explanation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran Kumar. Thank you, everyone. And it has been a great pleasure in having you all in the past 4 days. And thank you, Shannon, for your very valuable time. My serious apologies for you for making you a delay of like 5 minutes from the scheduled time. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your patience, and thanks a lot for everyone, each and every participants. Like looking forward for the other participation in the future events. Like thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you so much for having me.